Hey everyone, welcome to the Smarter Spaces podcast. We do this regularly twice a month, and if you're not a subscriber, where have you been? Push the button in whatever platform you get your podcasts in, and make sure you are signed up to follow us here on Smarter Spaces. Now, today's episode, we've got two industry giants joining us for an interesting conversation around two letters. Now, they're the most overused letters of 2024, and if I'm anything correct, they'll be overused as well in 2025. But we've got a different angle and a different take on AI. Now, before you hang up, disconnect, and stop listening or watching, this is going to be a good one. So let's roll the credits and let's get into this. Right, so as I mentioned, AI. Now, we've all heard about AI. We've probably played on ChatGPT. We've probably done our funny image of ourselves, cartoon image of ourselves when all that came out. But here's a different take on AI around AI agents and AIoT. Lots of acronyms there to get our heads around. And to help me with that, I've got two awesome guests joining us. First off, we have Jimmy Vaughan from Microsoft. Hey, Jimmy, how are you going up there in Jersey?
I'm doing good. It's cold in New Jersey today, Neil.
It's cold in London too. So let's try and bring some heat. Is it warm over on the West Coast, Mr. Brad Hintze?
No, absolutely not. It is equally cold. I was dying over the weekend. It just didn't get warm. I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
Brad Hintze, EVP of Marketing for Crestron. And as I mentioned in the outset, now we're going to, again, I'm going to preface loads of stuff here because everyone's already worried about AI taking their jobs. But we're now talking about AI agents, these like secret undercover agents that are going to be infiltrating organizations from China and Russia and places like that. So before anyone gets scared and gets worried, this is a thing for good. And a thing for awesomeness. And again, we want to talk about a different take on AI from what you might be used to, and it's a different angle that Crestron and Microsoft are looking at. So let's throw it open to you guys, and firstly, let's define this idea of AI agents and bring everyone's fear level a little bit down as to what we think an AI agent is and what it is.
You want to take that first, Jimmy?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Basically what an agent is the idea, you said it, Neil, you've been using ChatGPT, you've been using what's called large language models.
And these large language first time in the session.
Copilot, yeah. But you're using these large language models, and that's really what everybody's first interaction with AI really was, okay, this large language model is trained on everything in the world. So it's got general knowledge about everything, right? And that knowledge gets better and better over time as the model is trained, as the model learns things, as the model does what it does. But it's always a general knowledge solution. So while a year ago, ChatGPT was at a 5th grade level, ChatGPT now on a general side is now at a PhD level. That's what you sort of get on every single topic. But what we found, people refer to small language models and everything else. Agents aren't small language models. They're just experts in a certain curriculum, in a certain vein of something. So when you talk about an agent, you might have an HR agent. That's not going to be a ChatGPT where you can ask an HR agent about Excel and finance and things like that. That would be another agent. And again, they specialize in that curriculum that they're trained in on. And why are agents really sort of important? Because it lessens hallucinations. It lessens the wrong answers that you get because it is so specialized and it is so trained on exactly what it is. So agents really are this next coming of this general knowledge down to an expert. When you think about it, when you go to college, you get a PhD in a certain subject. You don't get a PhD in everything in the world, but that's what we've been asking of these large language models and getting the answers sort of in a generalized form that might not be as accurate as they could be. But if we give it a PhD in just this subject, we're going to get a much more accurate answer and a much more focused solution than we did on a generalization. Summary, probably in a 2-paragraph thing is really where agents are.
Yeah, I think that this is where there's so much opportunity for us as an industry I think that this is also the place where the benefit and value of AI becomes real for so many people in a way, right? Because today, look, I'm in marketing, so I can say this. Marketing has abused the word AI and applied it in too many things, right? AI furniture at CES, all these silly ways that AI has just been slapped as a label on.
It was, every product just add those two letters to the end of it, and suddenly it's a new product.
Right. They're trying to make it real. But I think that agents are particularly useful because many of them will be purpose built for a particular function. Jimmy, you talked about HR, right? There are marketing agents that you could do, right? There are agents that you might choose just for booking your travel, right? Just for business travel, right? Imagine, if you guys use Concur or whatever kind of booking platform, they publish to you an agent where you're just interacting with it. And I think a way to think about those agents are purpose built with a specific function or a set of functions that are very easy to interact with, plain language, plain English. And I think that the value is it makes that intelligence so approachable and easy to a large set of people. And that's where the AI agents then become a superpower for people that are within a particular domain, right? And we will see agents for AV managers. We will see agents for IT managers, right? And Microsoft, I'm sure, is already deploying and working on agents for managing your Teams rooms, right? And those kinds of capabilities. And so, if you think about agents as this way to really harness the power of AI for specific use cases, highly trained, highly focused, and we will have a large collection of agents. And I think it becomes super valuable. We've seen this kind of thing happen with the internet. We've seen it with mobile, right? These use cases as iterating and building in these capabilities in a highly focused way delivers a lot of value. There's a reason you have a bunch of apps on your phone, right? You don't have just one Uber app. You have lots of simple apps that are focused. Agents will become the same way in terms of harnessing AI. And I think as we see more and more of those, I think there will be less AI fatigue because it does feel real at that point.
It was interesting you said about the IT manager and the AV manager. Jimmy, I don't know, Ilya did a great piece at Ignite where he was talking about the fact that in Pro Portal and in Intune, you could actually now get Copilot to do a lot of the management donkey work that people would have to do, bringing, consolidating logs, uploading logs, and doing all that stuff. And again, we've always seen AI, certainly when we talk about meeting rooms and UC and collaboration, we've always seen AI as the kind of, we'll take the meeting notes for you, or it will do the transcribing and transcription and translation for you, which is all very cool and funky. But the idea of, again, that back end grunt work is something that's really interesting. Again, talk to us, Jimmy, about what Microsoft's doing around that piece.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I've done a couple of AI speeches and things like that. And I really sort of say to people, the moonshot makes a great demo. When you take AI and you do this moonshot and you do this crazy thing and you show everybody how it does all these things and everything else, that's incredible. And that's where I think that some of the fatigue may be coming from, is that the moonshot is what everybody's trying to do at their desk. But what they're not looking at is the places where AI can sort of fill gaps in everything that you do in your day. So some of the simple things, I'll take Copilot. I was speaking to a customer the other day and they said, well, how do you use Copilot? Because I'm not sure that we see the value in it yet and everything else. And I tell the story of, have you ever had, I know that Neil sent me a document, but I don't know where it is. I forget the name of it. I don't know where it is. And then you go through, and then you go searching through your email, and then you go searching through your Teams messages, and then you go searching through all the places that you save your documents to, but you can't find it. Well, something like Copilot, you just type in, can you show me the last 5 documents that Neil and I worked on together? Or Neil sent to me. Think of the prompt that you can do, but it's a natural language that you're going to say to it. And it may get that file. Now, that may have saved me 10 minutes, but it not only saved me 10 minutes, it kept my focus. So now I've got more productivity out of somebody just in a simple file search, just in a simple way of using things. Now, this isn't shiny and flashy for a demo to do and everything else, but it's a story that every single one of us can relate to. And we're going to do the same thing with Teams rooms. Some of the challenges that we have with Teams rooms is this thing happened. Something happened that was bad on the device or bad in the room, or they had a poor experience. Well, now that takes somebody to go, all right, well, let me go collect the logs. Let me go look at call quality dashboard. Let me collect and go and look at all the different places. Maybe there was something in Intune or Entra ID that it failed to authenticate, and that was the problem we were trying to look for. But again, it requires us to go look through all of this data in these different places. What we're really looking at AI to do is really be that, let's gather the information. Let's see if we can make an assumption about it and then tell you, here's where you're probably going to want to start your investigation on it. Now, that might not sound flashy for a demo and everything else, but again, that's somebody's job every single day. And if we can go ahead and we can make that bubble up to the top, and we can help sort of do that, that becomes an amazing thing. And Satya, all of us in Microsoft are seeing this every single day. Sam Altman from OpenAI, he actually made a statement a couple of days ago. We're going to see virtual employees enter the workforce this year. Now, when you think about it, you think of an employee as Brad Hintze, as Jimmy Vaughan, as Neil Fluester. You think of those employees. But what if there's an employee that's just there to help you? And Brad, to your point, what if that's an agent? Is HR going to now become run by IT? Because HR really, when you think about it, what are they doing? They're checking paperwork. They're going through processes. They're explaining benefits. They're explaining all of these things. And they have those meetings where they do all of this. Well, a lot of that could probably be done and organized. Again, we're not getting rid of that employee. We're just having this virtual employee that's probably available 24/7 and available for you to is this enough documentation for me to provide to you to prove that I'm a US citizen for my employment? All of those different things, that's where we're going to look at AI and sort of bringing it in.
Well, and I think that actually gets to the root of some people's questions, and that is, will it replace me, right? Will it replace the career that I've built and the domain knowledge and expertise that I have developed and invested in building over time? And agents won't replace that. It may make certain functions approachable for non-experts, but it doesn't replace the craft of
Correct.
knowing your profession. It will make people more efficient. It will give them tools to have superpowers, right? But in the example that you were talking about, AI will help automate and give some of the simple interactions, right? But it won't replace the judgment call that an HR professional has in interacting with humans, right? The emotional intelligence related to that. Now maybe they can spend more time going deep on those kinds of needs because they've automated the cruft that we all have to deal with, right? But I think that if we all in this industry approach agents as a way to leverage and build superpowers to enhance our own domain knowledge and experience, that is where the benefit of AI will come to all of us in our professional industry. Right.
Yeah,
and
I think AI, again, you said it's not replacing people and everything else. It's doing things. I mean, let's take the idea of an AV dashboard. For years and years and years, everybody's been trying to craft this one dashboard that everybody looks at and has this. Well,
pane of glass to show everything. That's the panacea, the new nirvana of, I want one pane of glass that does everything for me.
I mean, you start to take some models like SaaS. You start to take some models that actually exist where, we're building a dashboard to bring this to the front. Well, the data on the back end is there. That's what's building the dashboard. Yep. What if we had something that we could just have a natural conversation with? One of the things that I do all the time is I pick up my mobile device. I actually have I use an Apple device, and I use the control button, and that pops up Copilot for me with a voice. I don't type anymore with Copilot. I don't know how many people have tried this, but actually this is something that's for free. You download the Copilot app and you sign into it using your own personal account. There's no license to it. And you have a conversation, and it has an emotional voice to it. It's not a robotic voice. It's very real sounding and everything else, but you are having a conversation with it. Now, that's not an agentic application. This is the more general form of LLM. But what if I did have something that was an agent? And like I said, I had the information that a dashboard was built upon, and I could query and I could say, can you build me a report on how many times room 102 was used in the last 8 months? Again, it has that information in the background, and it can even, you can say, can you ask me any questions before generating this report? And then you can build a report for whatever you want. You don't need that dashboard to get your results. You're now just querying the information, and it's without code. It's without all these things that used to prohibit you as a user, or require somebody to go build, think about it, and then build it, and then 6 months later you have your dashboard.
Well, I think that use case is a really good example of why it is critical that you have these connected systems with the integrations and the open APIs to be able to access them. And that's where this whole concept of AIoT becomes.
Just still going to try and bring you into that, yeah. So I mentioned at the beginning, we talked about again AI agents. So AIoT is the other topic that we want to cover in this podcast. And again, I think a lot of people are kind of familiar with IoT now. They've all got, I'll say Alexa, and it'll probably chirp up in my background. Or you've got the Apple, or you've got the Google one, or whatever, and you've got these thermometers. You get your Nest thermostat and your doorbell and all the rest of it. And those are kind of sensors on your network for temperature and video and all the rest of it. But Brad, talk us through what AI is going to do to IoT, and again, from a device partner point of view, like Crestron, how are we looking to add AI into sensors and management to allow these devices not just to be a Teams room system or a camera or a microphone or an AV streaming device, but to actually be able to be more intelligent on the network and feed back data? Again, Jimmy was saying about how many times the room's being used. How's AIoT going to, what is it? Explain it to everyone.
Yeah. Truth be told, this is confession time. I have the same cynical take on the use of IoT as I think some are developing related to AI. In that IoT is a word that's it's a broad word, but it doesn't really directly deliver value to an end customer until they.
Things is a very broad term, isn't it? Internet of Things.
Right. Yeah. You don't go to the store and you say, "Can I have 10 IoTs, please?" Like,
Yeah,
what is that? Right. That's not a thing that you can go and buy. But at the end of the day, what is important is the connectivity between a wide variety of devices, whether they be sensors or interface devices, or even things like video bars, right? UC engines, an MTR room, in a very broad sense of the term, IoT can fit into one of those things. And so when you have connectivity between all of these devices, when you layer on intelligence to that, you can gain some of those new insights. In the example that Jimmy just gave about, tell me about the utilization of this room. Tell me about the health of these devices when you bring all of these things together. And so as we layer in intelligence to that connectivity between these devices, we will unlock new capabilities. Today, we're reliant on the software features that are built and running on those individual devices, right? Those capabilities that are in a Teams room running on a Crestron Flex hardware, and that's awesome. But as we layer in more intelligence, then what can you glean from the fact that you've got an MTR plus an occupancy sensor plus some other random piece of technology in that room? And now you're starting to ask about the utilization of those devices, even if they're not directly integrated to one another, right? And so I think that's a cool use case for these things that I think will continue to develop over time.
And I think that is the advancement. I mean, one of the things, if I think in my mind of the progression of things, IoT was great about collecting the data, but then what happened?
Right, exactly.
Nothing.
You've got a whole bunch of big data sitting in a database or a spreadsheet or whatever. What are you going to do with it?
I can have all this data in the world, but it doesn't tell me what's good, what's bad. It doesn't. It requires somebody to go and say, "This is a threshold." That's it. This is a threshold of good. This is a threshold of bad, and it's not predictive. It's a reactive. What you're really going to see with some of this AI, some of the AI applications that are coming, is there's predictive things that you can do. And it can mull over the data. Even if you're not looking at that data, it mulls over that data, and it can do a lot of these things. So that's where I sort of see AI going. And I've been in the industry for a very long time. You know, back in the early days of the internet, I remember people saying, this internet thing, it's never going to go. And, but these are the days of Ask Jeeves. These are the days of
Right.
Mozilla browsers and all the different things that were old that nobody but an old guy like this knows about. And that's sort of where we are with AI right now. Is I hear the skepticism. I hear it didn't work for me because they asked ChatGPT, this general knowledge thing, about something specific that they are an expert in, and it didn't give them the answer that they wanted.
Yep.
Not that it's wrong, it didn't
Yep.
give them the answer that they wanted. Now, if you have that experience, I understand why you're going away and you're saying, hey, AI is overhyped and it's not working and it's not these things. You have to see where this technology is actually advancing and have an open mind to, I can use this for something, and it might not be, like I said, that moonshot. It might be something very, very easy. You know, we talk about Copilot and just doing the document search. That's easy. That's easy. How many times? Well, let's go back even a little bit while. A couple of years ago, how many times did he mistype somebody's email address? Now it's predictive, and we never mistype somebody's email address anymore. Yep. I mean, that's a little bit about where we're going and what we're doing. And just those little helpful things are going to make it huge. But then when we get into this agentic AI and all the different things of virtual employees and different places that we can be, and you're going to see this slowly coming into the workforce, slowly coming into the marketplace. And that's where I agree. It's a huge opportunity. But to sit back and say that AI is overhyped and it's not going to be in a world that I know, I think that's a naive stance to take.
Well, that is don't like change. It's something new and something different and scary to go. And it is a big step change. I mean, if you look at there's always that kind of analogy of how long when a product comes out, how long it takes for it to become mainstream. There's like the Walkman and then the iPod, and then it gets rapidly shorter and shorter before it hits that 50,000 or whatever the number is. And I think AI has ramped so quickly. And it has been such a super fast.
But it's still a thought process, Neil. Yeah. It's still a thought process. You have to think to yourself, let me go to Copilot. Let me go do this. It hasn't worked itself into, a guy like me's workflow, 100%. But the generation that's entering the workforce now, that's going to be their first way of working.
Yeah. Well, and we've seen this in so many, there are a lot of corollaries too. Think about it, texting. Just imagine remember the first time you texted a colleague for a work issue, right? And I remember that it wasn't all that long ago. And it was, wait a minute, this is my personal phone. What I'm talking about business here. And it's these consumer technologies bleed into our world, right? And I know that there are a lot of people too. And you say that we're on the very front edge of it. And that's absolutely true, right? And we've been through these changes, the internet, mobile, just the connectivity to the internet, Web 2.0, right? I was, in San Francisco, the first Web 2.0 conference. Everybody's talking about this thing called Ajax, so that you get this rich browser experience. You don't have to refresh the page. Well, today we're recording this call in Riverside in Chrome web browser, right? And I think that for so many people, you couldn't have envisioned that 10, 15 years ago when people were first talking about it.
I'm using Edge, but here it is.
Oh, okay. You're using Edge. Good call.
Other browsers are available.
Yeah, that's right. But I think that the important thing is how do you set yourself up to be able to take advantage of this evolution? How do you make the right investments to make sure that you can go there?
Yeah, and to bring it back to the AV world, we hit this home on the sales boot camp that we just finished at Microsoft here about MTR. Everybody is going to return to work at some point, whether it's 5 days a week, 4 days, whatever you want to.
We've all been working. We haven't stopped working. We're returning to the
office.
We haven't. Yeah. So everybody's going back to an office, but we haven't refreshed offices in 6, 7, 8 years because we haven't needed to. Yeah. Because there was that element of remote. So if I'm going back to technology that's inside of my shared space, that's 6, 7, 8 years old and has no correlation to the modern way of working and being able to actually transcribe and do other things, we're going to be challenged in that workspace.
Well, Yeah, absolutely. If we're not modernized there, but I think that in-person collaboration demands more investment in technology to ensure that it's great. I think that the other thing is that, as you make those investments, make sure that you're choosing platforms that give you the ability to layer on these capabilities over time, right?
Yeah.
And so clearly, Teams is a really great platform. They're going all in with Copilot and AI. And so making a bet on Teams is also making a bet on the future and the continued iteration around AI. But the infrastructure that you bring into the room should also be ready to be connected, easily integrated, open APIs, all those kinds of things. And these are the things that, Crestron as a control platform provider has embraced the need, the importance of integrating products and technologies, building the foundations, the APIs, the ways to connect and speak to all of these devices, right? Connecting with the cloud and XIO cloud. And so all of these things form the foundation for continued iteration in bringing in AI and intelligence. And I think that that's
Yeah.
the right way to think about it.
And that's why we say to every Microsoft seller here, there is a conversation for our partners who enable meeting rooms. There's a seat at the table for that person at every Copilot discussion,
Yeah.
because when a Microsoft seller is at the table talking about Copilot with a customer, they're really thinking about licensing Jimmy Vaughan, licensing Brad Hintze, and licensing Neil Fluester. They're thinking about, all right, we're going to empower your employees.
Right.
Then when they do that, they realize we forgot about the shared space.
And which
And
is so critical.
and
They
and it's
must
so
have that
because
solved.
that's why we're in the office. That's
Yeah.
why we're in the office.
Yeah.
But they
Exactly.
realize that, hey, while Jimmy has a license, while Brad has a license, when Jimmy and Brad get together and they meet,
Meeting
whose
room members
license are
need
we
a license.
using, and what are we doing? Yeah,
Well,
will my AI be able to know that Jimmy's Jimmy and Brad is Brad? And
yeah,
think about the way an AI model actually works. It doesn't know from a transcript that there's two people in the meeting. It
yeah.
thinks that one person is in there if that's all that it hears. So there's all these challenges that go into multiple people inside of an office. But again, people, the sellers and the customers aren't thinking about that until afterwards, and that's where we've termed that term of blind spots. Mark Hodge, one of my colleagues here, he came up with a great thing. He goes, this is an AI blind spot. We
Mhm.
don't think about it, we don't see it until after the fact.
Well, I think that is an example of where the integration and the leveraging of AI has become so seamless on the individual personal side, right? And then people bring those expectations that it's there to support me when I go into a meeting room,
Yeah.
and it's actually, I think it's a good sign of the adoption, the rapid adoption, right? Because if no one was talking about this, then if no one was encountering this blind spot, you would say, "Oh, is anybody using this?" But they're using it and they are finding value from it, and then they go into those meeting rooms when they're meeting with their colleagues face to face, and they just expect it to work. And there are new challenges, right? Audio quality becomes even more important. Intelligent video becomes even more important, and so the value of technology in those meeting rooms with these new capabilities becomes even more paramount.
Jimmy, just quickly talk me through, the agent. We talked about agents a lot, and again, there's loads of great use cases, and we could carry on loads of different options for this. But let's talk about how we build an agent. What is it? Talk us through. Are there pre-existing, pre-built agents that exist? How does a customer go about building, one of these agents? So, we've lit up their thoughts and we think, oh, I can use that, or I can apply that in my organization. What's the kind of Copilot Studio plan? And again, is there a difference in options with the pre-coded version versus a one from scratch around it?
There's so many that Microsoft has built. There's helping and brainstorming agents. There's all these different things that are pre-built, built by Microsoft. They're inside of the Copilot, inside of your Copilot already. You can just add these agents. You can find out on, there's plenty of videos on the web We actually do a show every Friday called Selling Microsoft Teams Rooms, and we do an AI prompt of the week.
Dave Hatz does it, doesn't he?
Dave Hatz.
We had him on.
Yeah,
yeah we had him on for the predictions piece, and yeah, he's great.
Yeah, and he actually went through how, what are agents? Here's how you add them, and so on and so forth. But if you're an organization and you have an idea, hey, I'd love for this to be an expert on generating POs or generating bills or something like that, and everything else, or helping somebody inside of my organization do things. Copilot Studio is everything that you need to know. You don't necessarily need to know code to actually do these things. That's one of the big things, is that behind the scenes there's a ton of code. And this 2 years ago, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, Satya actually stood up at one of the Microsoft conferences, I think it was Build, and he said, it's amazing. He goes, but in a short period of time, the majority of code will not be written by humans. And we're seeing that now, because if I can just explain something of what I want it to do, now it can code, and now it can write that code. You don't necessarily need to see the code. You don't need to publish the code. You just need a way to do it. And in Microsoft's world, Copilot Studio is that way, where you're gonna provide it some data. And I'll give you an example, and then we'll erase this tape and we'll say Jimmy's out of there. We're required to actually do self-evaluations at Microsoft, right? So there are a ton of documents and a ton of example writing of here's how you do your self-evaluation, and here's what it is, and then they go through the questions. I'm a bright guy, I know AI. So I fed an agent every single piece of a documentation that HR had made about how to write your self-appraisal, what to do, what to actually go through it, and I used that to write my self-appraisal. Now, it was still me, because there were examples in there about what I did and things like that, but it was written in the style. My brain doesn't always think Microsoft. I'll be honest with you. There are so many acronyms and so many things that happen inside of Microsoft. I'm the guy in the meeting that says, hold on, what are we talking about? So that is a speak of its own, and it's in the language, and it's in the culture of Microsoft itself. And to be successful and have other people in this culture understand me, I needed to adapt to that. It's not easy for me. So I built this and I put it in, and I can tell you my leadership actually said, this is one of your best self-appraisals that we've seen, because it actually had that Microsoft slant to it.
It had that language, yeah.
It had that language, and I'm not saying. And again, it's not doing it for me. I was the one that prompted and said, put this in and do it in. But it's putting those words, it's putting those acronyms in, and everything else, so that people understand. There's big discussions here about your impact, all the different things that are those buzzwords that Microsoft has. And while it doesn't come naturally to me in language, I have to put that into writing so that people can see it. So like I said, don't tell anybody I did my self-appraisal in AI, but I use AI.
Don't tell Mr. Hintze when I write my next performance review.
There should be no shame about leveraging AI that way, right? And so
that's why I tell publicly.
Yeah, I mean, this is your group therapy session. No shame. It's okay, right? And that's what those tools are there for. It didn't replace your thinking. Correct. It didn't replace your input. It just made it so that you didn't need to worry about the cruft and those little details. It just refined it to make it more impactful, right? And so I think that's definitely a valuable tool.
I mean, Brad, what are the sort of top three things that you think are going to have in Crestron's portfolio that are going to have the biggest impact, or AI is going to have the biggest impact on, that you see certainly in 2025?
Yeah, I think that over time, there is no doubt we will continue to see massive iterative improvements when we leverage that technology, right? One, we always talk about, certainly intelligent video. We've got great new capabilities coming to automate VX and one beyond, really improving that, continuing to build on that video experience. So we'll see that there. We will see how can we leverage AI to make the support process, make the deployment process, make the specification process even better. And I think that will be another area where we will see really tremendous acceleration in value when you bring AI in. And then the third, of course, is, as you can tell, we're really tightly integrated with Microsoft, really great Microsoft partners. And so bringing Copilot into those meeting rooms is another area where you'll continue to see big investment on our part with Microsoft, and that Copilot integration is certainly really valuable. So those are some areas that I'm super excited about. There are plenty of others I can't talk to yet, but it is, as Jimmy said, we're still in the early days, right? We're in the CompuServe AOL era of right,
Yeah.
and I don't think that it is overstating it to say that this will be this whole focus around this technology will be so transformative to so many parts of our lives and the way we get work done, the way we live at home. Over the next decade, it will look so dramatically different, and it will be in large part to the application of these techniques and technologies to what we have today in the Crestron portfolio, and then the other technologies that are out there in the market as well.
Now, I'm going to put a flag on this and say this is part one, because I think we're going to come back. It was so funny before we pressed record. For you all watching and listening to this, we sat for half an hour before I even pressed record in the green room. Which I said, well, we better press record on this and get this done. So we could talk forever on this. I definitely think that we're going to revisit this subject later in the year. So let's call time on this one and call this one part one of an intro to AIoT and AI agents. Loads of great stuff to look at and to go and do your own investigations around Copilot Studio, Copilot, look at all the great stuff that Crestron's doing with regards to things like our management portal of Expo Cloud, how that can help with that. Again, as Brad mentioned, support and the devices for, again, things like, room evaluations. Is the audio good? Is, the acoustics good in the room? Is the video quite, is it dark? Is it light? These cameras and microphones can now turn into sensors and give us that data we can process. Brad and Jimmy, thank you ever so much. I guess, Brad, where can people hook up with you and find more information for you? You're a bit of a social active person there.
Yeah, and LinkedIn. I've been spending a lot more time hanging out there. So just search my name on LinkedIn.
Very cool. And Jimmy, where do you hang out these days?
Just LinkedIn. Yeah, that's kind of where I post everything.
It's a Microsoft platform of choice.
Yeah, we have a YouTube channel. We have a couple of things, but everything goes on LinkedIn. It's the platform of choice, so that we can make sure that everybody understands all the news that's going on around Teams rooms, because it's the time to invest in your spaces and make sure that everything's the way that it should be, because as we advance more and more, there's no going back. We're not going back to older times and everything else. We need to make sure that the spaces that people are dictating you must be in the office, that they're properly equipped at this point in time. So
Jimmy, Brad, thank you for joining us on today's show. Thank you all for listening, tuning, watching, wherever you're consuming this podcast. We are on YouTube. We're on all good podcasting platforms now. And again, this is an intro teaser. We're definitely going to revisit this, but loads of cool stuff. And again, everybody's jumped on that hype train, put those two letters after their product because maybe it's doing some clever programming. But actually, when you delve into deep as to what AI can do, there's a whole bunch more than transcribing and transcription and those LLM models that you may have played with ChatGPT. It's going to be cool stuff going from Microsoft and Crestron and many others that we want you to hook up and look into. Check us out at crestron.com for Smarter Spaces and all of our great products. And again, go and check out Microsoft.com for all of their platforms. Again, subscribe, tell your friends, join us on the episode of Smarter Spaces, wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll catch you on the next one.